I'm Artistic Gamer 7 and welcome back to another video here on the channel. This is the final part of St. Albans Sanatorium. This build was huge and gigantic and took forever. But anyway, I'll actually talk a little bit more about the build after I finish up the little hauntly tales from part 2. So as I was saying towards the end of part 2, there's been a lot that has happened on this land and in this building that has led up to the haunts, and there is basically a range of type of hauntings going on here. Basically anything that's usually been reported in the paranormal field has probably happened here. Now, I do know there's quite a few different stories, and like I was saying, there's quite a few different hotspots. I don't know of all of them. I know that there is like quite a few hotspots throughout the buildings. The patients' rooms, the basement, where they did a lot of testing, certain bathrooms and things like that are among some of the hotspots. But before I go into too big of details on at least some of the stories that I do know and some of the more specifics rooms I do know, just be warned that this is true stuff. Some of it does have some true stuff that happened in the past that has led up to the stories or the rumors of the hauntings, and there is some tragic, sad, gruesome details and things like that. I'm not going to try to get too deep into it so that it's not too crazy, but just be warned that there is some slightly sensitive stuff going on. So if you prefer not to hear that, just know you can either mute the video if you still want to watch the build and such, or if you just want to leave the build, that's fine too. I'm not going to make you listen to it, but I do like talking about the history and the stories that actually are behind the hauntings as well as the hauntings themselves, and I just want to inform people that do want to know. But anyway, let's continue. So one of the basic general stories that I do know of is a lot of times on the stairs there's a lot of shadow play. There is also a lot of usually sounds of footsteps or some sort of panic associated with the stairs. So almost like someone's running in a panic. I don't know if it's like, the spirit may be running away from them, or if it's a residual thing because something's happening somewhere in the sanatorium and maybe the staff is running. Not quite sure. And for those of you who are not familiar with some of the terms, I probably should mention them. So those of you who may not know as much about some of the ghost terms and stuff, I watch too much of this, but there's different types of hauntings a lot of times. Two of them that are mentioned quite often are residual and intelligence. Basically the difference in between residual is that is just an energy left imprinted into the area. Someone who had a very strong emotional thing happen there, and their energy was left, or they constantly did this one thing so many times on repeat, their energy eventually just sort of got sealed into there. Now, one of the things I started wondering about residual, and this is just going to be a little funny thing, has nothing to do with St. Albans, but something I sort of started wondering and something I thought would be funny if true, and take this as a perspective if you believe in hauntings or not, and let's just go say they are, well, just ignore if you don't believe in ghosts and things like that, let's just go with they are. And residual is a thing, and it's technically energy imprinted into an area, and you can imprint that energy at any time of your life. So I've always wondered, can someone technically haunt themselves because of residual? Can you have such an emotional impact in your house at one point, or do something in your house so much and somehow it gets imprinted in your house, or maybe even work or something, and then you go back there and the energy is replaying itself because it's now imprinted and trapped, but because it's you, can you haunt yourself? Like, that is like a serious question I have. And I do know like certain materials are said to trap or retain energy more than others. I know limestone is a really huge one, but yeah, so and there's other materials as well. I just know limestone is like the big one. But I just always wonder that. Can you technically haunt yourself when it comes to residual hauntings? But anyway, intelligence are the ones that are said to be basically they can communicate. They are the ghosts of someone who has passed away that was once living, and they are aware of what's going on in their surroundings. They know what's happening. They can communicate back and forth and so forth. Now, there's also terms like poltergeist used. That is usually still something along the lines of a human haunting intelligent, but they tend to be a little bit stronger, a little bit more active. They tend to be able to throw things to a certain extent and stuff like that. There's also demonic, which that one itself almost should explain it. Tends to be a very darker spirit, usually referred to as never living and things like that. So those are some of the most common terms used in a haunting. So whether or not the one on the stairs is residual or intelligence, who knows? Sometimes it'd be hard to tell, but I do know it is sort of a common thing, and from what I could see, it was never like proven to be interacting with them, so it can maybe be easier said as residual, but who knows? Now, I did find a story about, which I didn't find this story until after I finished the build, and I wish I would have found it before I finished the build. But there is quite a few well-documented reports of a particular room that has been called the Rocker Room, and I assume it's because of the chair that is in this room. I don't think there'd be any other. It's probably a patient's room that had a rocking chair in it, but this rocking chair on many instances has been caught rocking by itself. No one's in the chair, no one's around the chair, and even in some instances they've just walked into the room and this rocker is moving. Now, the pictures that I could see of this room and where the rocking chair is, the rocking chair is not in a room that appears to have any windows, because the lighting that's in this room definitely looks artificial. And what walls I can see, I see a partial doorway that looks like the door has been ripped off the door, but also the walls, and there is no windows, so the wind thing probably would not be a thing. And plus, I don't know if it'd have to be a pretty strong wind to get a rocking chair to move. And usually wind that gets in a house, unless it's like a huge opening, usually isn't that strong, at least not in my experience, but anyway, so yeah, this rocking chair moves on its own, and it's sort of one of the weird-looking rocking chairs. It's not the one that has the rounded bottoms that technically we have in Sims. It actually has a flat bottom, but it has the mechanism somewhere inside the chair that makes it go back and forth. But the legs itself that it's sitting on is not the moving part. They stay flat, they stay still, so it's that type of chair. But if you wanted to research the stuff and look at the pictures, I could provide links down below. Just let me know, and I'll send you some of the links of places I use to look at stuff and read up about St. Albans. I could do that in any of the future builds as well, if you want to read them. Now, there is a bathroom somewhere amongst, I think it's closer to the patient's rooms. Sadly, this bathroom does not look like my bath. I mean, in some ways, like, the layout of the tub and the bathtub and the sink, to some degrees, look similar. The coloring does not. I was guessing with the coloring. This is the first site that I found, like, pictures of these bathrooms, but most of my bathrooms just look the same, except for the ones where they did experiments on. And that was the only ones I'd seen pictures of. So, but yeah, I had mentioned it in part 2, which was the suicide bathroom. There's at least 4 documented suicides and deaths in this bathroom. Well, the 4 suicides. There may have been other deaths, but there's at least four of them were suicides that took place in this bathtub. It's always sort of strange when you have a place where something like suicide has commonly occurred, but that also leaves quite a bit of energy. And I know that there's a lot of weird feelings in this bathroom and some noises here and there. And I definitely know walking in there knowing that I definitely would feel creepy. So is it... Sometimes it's hard to say when it comes to the ones where the people say they feel creepy or feel something. Because I mentioned in the first video that I started the series where I just built a random abandoned haunted house. And I've had feelings where something just felt off, but that feeling would go away. So that's one of the hard ones to me, because like if it's something that is constantly there throughout the whole entire haunted place, then it's probably your nerves or something like that getting to you. But if it's coming and going, it's a little strange. So I'm not sure in these cases what it was, but I definitely know there were some weird feelings and stuff like that. I would probably feel weird, but there's a difference in between just feeling weird because you know something horrible took place there versus something's off, I guess, if that makes any sense. But yeah, just going by what reports and things that I've come across and found, I would love to get a chance to still go here. I'm gonna say that in like every video about 10 times, but I would love to get a chance to actually go here for myself and maybe experience some of these things and see how they are. And I also know that there's a lot of creepy feelings and a lot of strange noises around a lot of the lab areas where they did experiments and things like that. Obviously, there was quite a few people that went there that was sort of tortured and stuff like that because they were being experimented on and tested on and going through all this stuff. And like I had mentioned in part 1, like the electroshock therapy and different things like that, often eventually in like lobotomies and stuff often left them with worse side effects afterwards. Like they became brain dead, or they actually passed away, or there was a lot of other function seizures, things like that that would occur afterwards because of these that they didn't have before, and now they have this plus their why they were there in the sanatorium in the first place. And probably the most active area is down in the basement, which has quite a few reports. Shadows, mist, voices, you name it, a big chunk of it is down in the basement, especially near the bowling alley, which you should have just seen me actually building the bowling alley not too long ago. I put graffiti all over the walls because this is the heavily most graffiti place in all of the building. Technically the whole building has graffiti throughout it, and I realized I started trying to put graffiti here and there, and my intentions was to keep putting graffiti here and there, and then I totally forgot. And then I got to the bowling alley, and it's everywhere. But this is one of the most graffitied places throughout the whole building, and also one of the most active places. Now, when it comes to the bowling alley, there's actually a few specific, entities referred to down there. There is one that apparently is called Red Eyes, which is believed to be more of a negative, potentially demonic type thing. It is not seen as a good entity at all, and tends to try to mess around with people and things like that. There is also rumored to be Gina Hall's spirit down there. So Gina Hall was a young woman. She was, I think, 16, 17. And she had went to a dance, and eventually, I forgot the name of the guy, but the guy was convicted. I think it was the first crime in Virginia to be convicted guilty without the body. So he was convicted, but she was kidnapped and killed by this man. And all this happened very, very, very close to the sanatorium where her car was found, where he dumped the shovel and her clothes and things like that. So in the crime scene, you literally can see St. Albans in the distance. Some people believe at one point he may have even brought her even closer to St. Albans, or even in St. Albans to commit the act, and then buried her somewhere close by. But her body was never found, and the last I checked, I still don't know if she's actually ever been found, her body. But a lot of people are reporting that she actually is in St. Albans, in the basement. Her ghost, they've tried to bring up her name, or they've received her name and stuff like that, and they've gotten responses from her. There's also said to be a little girl who is potentially the daughter of a patient that had died there at the sanatorium that is seen running around in the basement as well. So, it's got these 3 known entities, this mist and shadows, not knowing which one it's associated with. And plus, with all the other patients that have been there, who's to say that it's always those 3 at all times? It's just those are ones that are talked about quite often and more documented than some of the others. Now, as far as one of the other people that have heard about, there is a patient known as Rebecca, who I don't know which floor she was on. I want to say it was the second or third floor that her patient room was on. I definitely don't think it was the first, because there is some patient rooms on the first one, but she definitely was, I'm pretty sure, up on one of the upper stair ones. And she had actually had a stillbirth, and she had kept her baby in some, I don't know if it was I think it was a jar, maybe, or something, but her stillborn baby and hid it in the closet. And when staff had found it, they discarded it, and she eventually, like, soon after, committed suicide, and she is rumored to also be one in there as well, who is, you can make contact with. And there's just probably countless stories that, you know, if you kept diving in, or if you were to go there yourself and be told some of the stories of just tragedy and random moments and acts that make absolutely no sense why they were allowed, and just tragedy all over the place, which is allowing this energy to be built up and have these haunting stories within the building. So definitely has earned its right as one of the most haunted locations on the East Coast. Again, I would love to go see this place for myself. If for some reason, you know, you're watching this and you've actually visited St. Albans, let me know your story down in the comments below. I'd love to hear your story. I also would love to hear any suggestions of what other builds maybe I should try to do that are haunted. I am probably not ever going to do a sanatorium again. Sanatoriums are so huge. And this was a bigger task than I thought it was going to be. I know one of the biggest well-known haunted places is Waverly, and Waverly is even bigger than St. Albans. It's got like 4 stories or something, and I just, no. just no. Now, going back to the building itself, as you see in the basement was more in this part, which consists of a boiler room, a print shop, a barber shop, the records, file room, and the bowling alley. The bowling alley is really active down here. I've heard of stories also from the record room, which is probably amongst some of the same spirits because this is the basement. But, oddly enough, the basement is sort of split in half, even though it doesn't look like it. When you're in the blueprints, there's not a door to connect the section that has the boiler room and the bowling alley, and then the section that has the records room and the filing print shop and all that stuff. So that's sort of interesting and random, but why there is no door to connect those two, even though they're technically connected. But the boiler room, as you can see, I made very, very grimy and gross. I've seen pictures of it that looks like it was flooded at one point in time. There's also just graffiti all over the bowling alley. Again, one of the most, out of all the pictures I've come across, it's got one of the most graffitied walls out of them all. It's also one of the more haunted places. It's sort of strange that there's a bowling alley. But I do, like, the way that, the sanatorium was supposed to go, the direction it was supposed to go was to be a good place. So it was supposed to have activities, like, outside activities, and the bowling alley, like, there's obviously the barber shop, there's the print shop, which I'm not quite sure what type of print shop it necessarily was. I have a rough idea of what a print shop in general is now, but I don't know of when this was built, what its process was, whether it was like newspapers or something else. I'm not sure. Or if it was, I don't know, but I just basically put a random activity tables and stuff like that and a bunch of paint cans in there and stuff, just to give sort of that illusion like it was some sort of workshop type thing. But yeah, so it's definitely probably very creepy. I think the screenshots, which you're definitely seeing by now, show off the creepiness a little bit better than when you're seeing me actually in the process of building it. I had, like I said, I had a lot of fun. There was some very tedious parts of this build, but I still really enjoyed it. I liked bringing another aspect of something I really like into Sims, and that's one of my favorite things to do with Sims. Like, I probably enjoy doing stuff like that more than actually playing it, which is trying to bring in other things I like outside of The Sims into the game, even if it's just like another game. Like obviously I have my Pokemon cast series. I have another cast series coming up that is related to another video game. I've made other random video game characters in here like Link and Zelda and Pearl and Marina. So I do quite enjoy bringing the ghosts, one of my other interests, which is the ghost side of things, into the mix, and it also brings history, a little bit of history in with it as well. So I had a lot of fun doing this. I'm sorry it was split up into 3 parts, but this was such a big build that I had to split it up in 3 parts unless I was to make it so fast that it would just be blah. And obviously the first part was made because I didn't have the build finished by the time the first part came out, and I worked so hard the last so many days after Wednesday trying to get the build ready for Saturday, which is today. I am recording this voiceover today. So it was a lot of work going into this, and I had the one scare when I thought I lost everything. But luckily I did not lose everything. But I would love to hear your thoughts down below on the stories and how the build turned out. Would you visit St. Albans for yourself, or somewhere close, somewhere like similar to it that's closer to you? Again, I will not be building Gravely. I will probably not be building another sanatorium anytime soon, because, oh, goodness gracious. This was a lot. But when it comes to the overall build, I definitely know it's not exact. I just tried to get as close as possible with some loose inspiration from it as well. I think technically a lot of the walls are more like a paint instead of a wallpaper, but I did use I think that's a wallpaper. It may be a paint, actually, wall. But I did see a lot of blues and whites and creams as far as, like, a lot of the walls. And obviously, like, the paint is actually peeling, horribly peeling in St. Albans. On the stairs, on the walls, you name it, it's just peeling. And there's just pieces of paint peelings all over the place. The furniture looks dirty and grimy for the most part. And I can't fully replicate those things in Sims because there's not, like, a completely destroyed ripping wallpaper design. There's not, grimy furniture and things like that. You know, if we got a haunted pack, maybe we'd get all that stuff, but, you know, we don't have all that. So I tried my best when it came to that stuff. That's why I put all this stuff over the walls, to try to still give that appearance of the walls being gross. I don't think many of the walls are actually, like, cracking as bad as I showed it. I think the ceiling, more than anything, is falling apart, which is why I put, like, the little wood pieces and the little rock pieces all over the place. That is supposed to be imagining that the ceiling is falling apart, although you can obviously see the ceiling is boring white like every other Sims build, because you can't change the ceiling. I mean, I partially get why it's not an option, and then as someone who does try to build a lot, it annoys me. But, so yeah, that's what all those little, like, pebbles and rock pieces and wood that is laying on the ground is. It's meant to be pretending like the ceiling is literally being destroyed and falling apart. I did try to get piping through some of the places because there is a lot of exposed pipes I've seen in a lot of pictures, but obviously I can only do so much. There's also a lot of wiring and electrical outlets also being shown in a lot of the pictures, but there's only, again, so much you can do in Sims. Broken windows, we don't have those, or at least chipping windows, boarded up windows, windows that are partially open because what holds them up has broken, so, you know, stuff like that. And one of the most saddest things that I really wish I could have been able to put in here that we do not have is wheelchairs. Obviously, even if we had wheelchairs, they probably wouldn't look like old, beaten-up wheelchairs, but I could at least put them in here. But, you know, they don't have... I wouldn't mind disabilities being in Sims. That's something I actually would like to see represented for those people who do have those disabilities and stuff like that. I think it would be nice to them. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. But yeah, there's, like, gurneys and wheelchairs throughout St. Albans. I don't have access to those. There is a rooftop garden. I did put, like, a garden thing out back to at least represent the garden. But the way I didn't know where the rooftop garden exactly was. It was hard to tell from the blueprints itself. I'm pretty sure I know where it is now, and there's actually like a little staircase on the outside of the building. When you look at pictures of it, that's on like the main front section on its left side, you can see like a little staircase coming out of one of the rooms and then going down to a bridge. Like it's like a wire frame staircase, like you see for like fire chutes and things like that, coming out and going down, making a bridge across the roof and onto like a flat section of the roof. Thing is, we don't have stairs that would be able to do that because I'd have to have like the bridge thing going across it, and I don't know how I'd replicate a wire bridge. And also making sure that it didn't actually go through the next roof and it just sat out across the top of the roof. Pretty sure that wouldn't have been doable, which is why I omitted that staircase in the first place. But I'm pretty sure that's where the rooftop garden is. But yeah, you can actually see a rooftop garden that has wire caging all around it so that patients wouldn't jump off the roof and, you know, try to commit suicide. Which, another sad, grim tale of this sanatorium, that they even have to go to those lengths to try to make sure they wouldn't. But yeah, so there's that there. There's so many tales. I definitely recommend maybe at least trying to watch something on it or, you know, read up on it. I can provide links to the places that I was looking at some of the stuff if you would like that, if you'd like to go read it yourself. Or look at the pictures, because a lot of them have pictures associated with it. So if you'd like to see the pictures associated with them, I definitely would provide links if you'd like to. But I do hope you like this build of the sanatorium. I hope you like how it turned out. I'm proud of it. I definitely think when it comes to my building skills, it's definitely not on par with some people that I love to watch their builds. Like, I definitely don't think my building skills are nowhere on par with some people I know. I like watching, like, Hipper Nate, Kate Emeralds, Aveline, Chrissy's Corner, Deli, Spring Sims. They're just some of the many that have better building skills than I, and so many people that have been a part of my collabs. Like, that is a long list if I was to go off of it. I've liked a lot of Smurfette Sims builds that she's done for my collabs, and I know, Frankie, she does Sim stuff on streaming and stuff, but she doesn't do as much Sims as she did once before. A lot of great builds from her. There's been so many people that they've inspired me to try to get better at building, and I'm definitely better than I used to be, but I still think I have a long ways to go with my building skills. But I still am proud of a lot of my builds that I have done, and this is one of them, partially because of the sheer amount of size it was, and like, I knew how much time I had to put in this, even though it is not as much furniture and stuff in it, but just trying to get it to look like old, abandoned as much as possible and doing all this stuff. Like, it took a lot of time for me to do this build, and I am happy with it. I'm proud of it, and I had a lot of fun doing this video, even though there was a lot of stress also associated with this video. But yeah, I really, really hope you like how it turned out. Like that lovely like button. Like that lovely like button. Hit that lovely like button if you did like how it turned out. And make sure you're subscribed so that you don't miss some future haunted builds. The next one is going to be smaller. Whatever place I pick is going to be smaller, just so I can have like sort of a break from a big build. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what's one of your favorite parts and what's one of your favorite stories, the little spooks, what ghost stories. And again, I'd love to hear your stories if you've been to St. Albans, but honestly, I'd love to hear your ghost stories from anywhere, whether it's your house or someplace you visited, a school, or, you know, an old jail or something, whatever it may be. I'd love to hear some ghostly stories from you all, because I'm a sucker for some spooky stories. And just to let you know, if you have missed the first build that started off the series, or if you're coming across this little mini haunted build series that I'm doing a little bit later on in the month of October, after the month of October 2020, there is a playlist down in the link below, in the description below. There's a link to the playlist in the description below. Can I talk? No, I can't. That is a very simple answer to that question. But yeah, there is a link to the playlist below so that you can go watch the other haunted builds. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Bye bye!